One is SSDI. Now, the difference between those is the SSDI, the amount that you're able to draw in benefits is dependent on your work history. So, you work a certain number of quarters and you earn a certain amount of money and you're entitled to either a disability benefit, or if you're over your full retirement age, or even past your early retirement age, you can also draw SSDI retirement. SSI is what they call a means-tested program. That means it's basically for people who have not worked enough, or if they have worked, they haven't earned enough to qualify for SSDI. So SSI is one set amount. It's for people that have no other income, but they're either retirement age or they're disabled. So they're both disability programs and retirement programs, depending on your age. The difference between the two is, of course, how much work history you have. So people who get SSDI, if you've earned a lot in your working life, you draw much higher a benefit than SSI, which in California is pretty much set around $850 to $950 a month, depending on your circumstances. So that's the difference between the two. We work with both programs. And we also help with county benefits. We have lawyers on duty at our front desks at each office. We have an office in downtown Oakland on Franklin Street, one in West Oakland on San Pablo, and one here in Berkeley at Shattuck and Woolsey. And we have lawyers at the front desk, all day except Tuesday mornings and Fridays, who will try to help you with whatever legal issue you may have, and if they can't, they'll try to give you referrals to someplace that does help. But as I said, our expertise is really in benefits, whether county or federal.
Now, the disability part, so you try to get people help with that, with getting that.
Right.
benefit?
We walk people through the disability application process, which is quite involved and often takes a couple of years.
Takes a couple of years?
Yeah.
You're kidding?
Mm-mm. No, Social Security, requires pretty specific evidence, and they kind of have an institutional culture of saving money and not paying people unless they absolutely have to.
Yes.
And so sometimes people get denied at every stage until we go before a judge and you have a lawyer with you and we gather evidence on your behalf and present to the judge on your behalf. And
Thank you. And then I have one more question. When someone gets that, when they get that money, how do they keep getting that money? What kind of responsibility is towards keep getting that money? The reason I'm asking is that I have a grandson who he has extremely low vision, and so got him on that program. But I'm kind of concerned because he is of age. I'm 21 now, and I'm kind of thinking what his responsibilities towards being able to keep that benefit while it's needed.
Well, it depends to some extent on the facts of his case and the evidence of his disability. If his vision is low enough that he's almost blind,
yes, that's correct,
then he probably will continue to qualify as an adult, but he may have to go through an additional process. Now, he's 21, so without knowing too much about the case, it sounds like he would have had to sort of re-qualify as disabled at 18. So he will, I can't say, but generally what they do is periodic, what they call disability reviews. So every couple of years, depending on the person, they'll make you come back into Social Security and prove that you're still disabled. And that means just submitting medical documents that will support the fact that he is very low vision and almost blind.
Okay.
And then as long as you respond to those, you can generally keep your disability going as long as the disability exists.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Do disabilities include learning disabilities?
Sure. If they keep you from working, yes.
I have a question.
Okay.
I used to be on food stamps, 2 years ago. I have no ID, no nothing.
Mm-hmm.
They already have my picture on the computer and stuff, but I work every day. I don't have time to sit there and spend down all day at the jail. I just don't have time.
Yeah.
I gotta make money, I gotta feed myself. And
So are you talking about food stamps or
yeah,
GA?
I'm just talking food stamps. GA, they can keep it, I make that money.
Well, you know, we help people apply for food stamps online at our office.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, what you can do is come in, sit down with somebody for half an hour, have them do a food stamps application online for you, and then because you're homeless, they're supposed to expedite the process. You should be able to just go into 2000 San Pablo and pick up your card 3 days later. They make you do an interview, but you could do that by phone, or, you know, there are ways to figure out an easy way to do that.
I stay pretty much busy about 6 days a week.
Mhm.
Sunday, I know they're not open.
Yeah. It's difficult because they are going to make you jump through the hoops, and there's no way around it usually. The one thing we can do is make the application process easier for you, because you could just come in, we'll submit it online, and then you just go in, do your interview, and pick up your card.
Yeah.
So that's a little bit shorter than sitting in that horrible place all day. But
Well, it's so bad. It is so bad. And
Depends
the
on the
employees
day.
are- The employees are fairly nice there.
yeah,
Well,
it can be.
it's not that, I just don't have the time during the week because I have to go out, I have to make money.
Yeah, and there are very long wait times there. It's as bad as the DMV. So I see your issue. I don't know, the only thing we can do is try to speed it up for you by doing an online application. Sir in the back?
I just wanted to say something, Mr. Brother here, Mr. Boyd, I was going to say, I was going to ask a question, I was going to inquire about the migrant farmer status, where is the status of the migrant farmer? Like, because I do desire to migrate to the culture, and I don't know if that will give me like more resources or less of them, or if that will be discriminated against. Is there any provisions for the migrant farmers?
Well, I mean, migrant farm workers, usually when those are referred to by the government, they're talking about...
In the welfare state,
Yeah, I mean, they're talking about people who came from another country to work,
Oh.
not so much people who live here and travel to work. So they're really referring to immigrants who come to this country to work on in agriculture. So you really wouldn't be classed as a migrant worker, since at least you sound pretty American to me.
Yeah.
I was going to say, there is some, down in Santa Cruz, there's some specific housing for migrant workers, that you have to be a migrant worker to be eligible for the housing. So that's a specific housing program that you could, that is there for migrants, people who work in farms.
In Santa Cruz.
In Santa Cruz County, yeah, in Watsonville.
You know,
Is that because the farms are right there?
I think it's proximity to the fields, yeah. There's subsidized housing down there. I just saw a list not too long ago, yeah.
You got Mendocino County, got Fresno, all right around there.
I was just wondering what a classification that would work, I mean, for those who come to this country and those who were born here, would be seasonal, like seasonal agricultural worker, seasonal farm worker, like using that phrase, seasonal, because, it depends on the crop, like people move around, depending on what crop is needing work at that time seasonally. And I don't know much about it, I'm just wondering if that would help in applying for that housing that's related, if you're not technically from another country.
Yeah, it may. I mean, I'm not an expert on farm worker rights. I mean, you may be able to qualify as a seasonal worker just by the fact that you work in the fields, and maybe that you travel for work. mean, my sense is that legally they're talking about undocumented immigrants who come to work. But I can't answer that question without doing more research, because that's not my specific area of expertise.
Oh, follow-up, I was wondering also, is there some sort of judicial body that's particular to the welfare state that might be able to, I guess, establish or speak to my status as a body in this territory, like my
Just
status?
the courts, the courts.
Oh, just the regular old circuit courts?
Well, I guess you would probably go to federal court for something like that.
Just for like a advocacy statement, like, oh, this person is, entitled to the full,
Yeah, I'm not sure you'd get very far, but that's you'd probably start with federal courts for a claim like that.
oh, because I guess I would just provide some context for my question. Is like, basically, I've been sort of advocating for my wellness plan, my treatment plan with my, just for my psychiatric and also my physical, wellness and health and things. And I've been doing some studying of like the laws and things, but it seems like my interpretation of the legislation are, I guess, not welcome or not affirmed, I guess, by practitioners at the agency level, at the county level. So it's like I'm having an issue like with my interpretation of the laws of the state and my rights, derived from those legislations.
Yeah, and it may be that your interpretation differs from the so-called official interpretation. If I were you, I would maybe go down to California Rural Legal Assistance.
California
Rural Legal Assistance.
Rural.
And they've got an office right downtown on Franklin and 14th. Maybe talk to one of those lawyers because they are experts in those kinds of issues, in migrant working issues, and maybe you could get a little clarity from one of their lawyers about your interpretation versus whatever interpretation.
Why does it mean not so much as my status as a member of the working class as much as just a member of like the disabled peoples, or I guess challenged or diagnosed, dealing with diagnosis category, and basically the treatment, for wellness, basically like trying to communicate with doctors has been sort of, I don't know if y'all are talking about homelessness, which this might be a contributing factor to homelessness, but maybe this is something that y'all can.
Well, our main focus is rights on the street and services existing here in Berkeley, so maybe we can talk afterwards a little bit more.
Yeah, I'll have to definitely articulate myself a little more clearly.
Yeah, we can maybe talk one-on-one and get a better sense of where you're going.
Now, I have a question.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to disturb you. What are our rights on the street?
Funny you should ask. So I have a bunch of flyers here that basically that the East Bay Community Law Center put together.
Excuse me, was that a part of the handout package upstairs?
It was on our table upstairs, so if you came by our table, you can go ahead and hand them out. They're the same on both sides, pretty much. So, breaking it down in terms of legality, I think the important things to know is that it is not illegal to loiter on a public street.
So basically, I'm on public ground. They can't do anything to me.
Right, as long as you're not obstructing, trespassing, giving, messing with people, as long as you're just
All I
minding
do
your
is
own
go to-
business on
All
a
I do
public
is go
street.
to sleep, I get up and I go to work.
So
That's it.
that's perfectly legal. It's also legal not to have an ID, but you should know that, if a police officer wants to arrest you and has an option between giving you a ticket and taking you to jail, if you don't have an ID, they can take you to jail just because they can do that to sort of figure out whether you are who you say you are.
Yeah, okay, I can understand.
They're probably not gonna, because it's a thing for them.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but they can, they have the option, but technically, you don't have to have an ID. You also have a right to hang out in public parks, just like on public spaces, as long as
you're
they're
not there after
open.
10 o'clock.
You have a right to sit or lean against a building or on the sidewalk. So to be guilty of obstructing, you have to be intending to block people's passage.
Right in the middle of the sidewalk, basically. But you can be leaning against the wall, reading a book.
You have a right to panhandle, as long as it's not aggressive,
Yes.
and it can't be within 10 feet of an ATM machine.
I thought it was 20.
I have a question on that. The other day I saw a lady that was panhandling on the store over there on it's I think the store is I think it's Whole Foods here on Sharek. It was a lady with a big, but he was in the kind of in the parking lot. Is that legal? No.
Well,
If you're on
that's
the
private
property.
property. So, if she was actually on Whole Foods property in the parking lot, then they have a right to ask her to leave. It's not her right to be there. She could be on the sidewalk, just outside of the parking lot, but as long as she's on public property, nobody can ask her to leave if she's not obstructing somebody. But if she's on private property, like a parking lot,
And
then
I
she
have
has
another
no
question.
particular right.
Regarding panhandling. Although it's not legal, is that a state law or is just like can a city have an ordinance to not to panhandling? Because I think in
Yes.
Riverside it's illegal to do that.
They can have an ordinance. In fact, there's this upcoming city council meeting on Tuesday night. They're going to decide on a new ordinance regarding having your stuff on the sidewalk. We think it'll pass, but if you guys want to go and advocate for yourselves, you should. Because they're basically they're putting restrictions on what you can have on the sidewalk and where in the city of Berkeley, and I'll talk more about that. in a
Like
minute.
how much stuff you have. That's,
Yeah, and
that's
what kind
another,
of stuff. Basically, you can have stuff on the sidewalk in commercial or what they call manufacturing districts. But in residential districts, you're not allowed to have anything on the sidewalk.
I can kind of understand that.
And, if you have stuff on the sidewalk in a commercial district or a factory area, you can't leave it for more than 2 hours. They can take it. It can't be on a block where there are BART entrances. This is all part of the new ordinance that they want to pass Tuesday. So any block where there's a BART entrance can't have stuff. You can't be blocking the sidewalk. Obviously, you can't block driveways, crosswalks, bus stops, trash cans, what they call public structures or accessibility features. So by that, they really mean, driveways, BART entrances.
I don't leave my stuff behind. Whenever I get up, this baby goes with me.
If the cops take your stuff, they're supposed to keep it safe unless it, quote, clearly looks like garbage, which, is often a matter of interpretation.
It depends. It depends on the cop.
Yeah. So they're supposed to put it in a locker for you and save it for you, and you're supposed to be able to retrieve it. In my experience, that doesn't often happen. But
How long are they supposed to keep it?
30 days.
There you go. And, you know, in certain parts of the city, for example, in People's Park, you can only have as much stuff as you could carry out in one load, and it all has to be in your immediate
Area.
custody and control, exactly, yeah.
What about baskets?
Baskets?
Yeah,
I don't
you
think
know,
there's,
the ones with the wheels?
I think, well, it depends. I mean, the stuff that's exempted by this ordinance are things that you might have out for sale, things that you're just moving in transit, and mobility devices. So depending on the basket, if it's one of those walker things, you know, that could be considered a mobility device, and that's allowed to have on the sidewalk.
No,
I think if
mean
it's
a
just a
basket.
shopping basket, you
Yeah, a
know.
shopping basket with wheels.
If you're talking
You're
about
allowed to
a
have that
shopping
with
cart,
you, as long as you're not obstructing.
And it has to be with you, and you can't leave it anywhere past 2 hours.
Right.
Okay, now what about in front of this library? You
Mm-hmm.
notice there's a lot of baskets out there.
Mhm.
So what's going to happen, you know, when they say you left your, you know, you're in the library for 8 hours,
Mm-hmm.
and your basket's parked out there because you can't bring in your shopping cart.
Right.
So what happens to it out there?
The police can take it after 2 hours if this legislation passes, yes.
Okay,
This
so
ordinance
for
passes.
example, right now we're in the library and I parked my shopping cart out there and I'm on the, you know, I'm in here and then all of a sudden I come in here at 10 o'clock a.m. and I leave at 6 p.m. and the shopping cart isn't there.
Yeah.
That's what potentially that's what could happen.
Yes.
So this isn't, because it's a library and everybody knows that, you know, a lot of homeless people come here, this is not considered exempt from, you know, but obviously I have to leave my stuff out front of the library where, you know, homeless people do tend to come to.
Yeah, and I mean, you know, who knows how much the Berkeley Police Department is going to enforce this particular ordinance in a library. I mean, I think the thinking behind this ordinance is to keep the sidewalks clear. So, you know, out in front of the library, I mean, the baskets are, you know,
Well,
people's
there's
shopping carts.
there's a large, the sidewalk becomes larger.
Exactly, so they're not obstructing anything. I don't know, you know, if I were a police officer, I'm not sure that I would enforce this in front of the library, knowing that people spend many, many hours a year, that their stuff isn't in anybody's way. So, you know, hopefully they wouldn't enforce it, but technically, yes, they could take it if you leave it unattended for more than 2 hours.
but a lot of people don't seem to understand. You have a shopping cart. I don't care where it comes from. Cop can sit there and say, that's stolen property, because that's what it is.
Yeah. Mhm.
I mean, so
So,
they
I mean,
can do
there are
what they can
many
do.
ways that the police can mess with you that are frankly technically legal, like telling you have stolen property.
I think it depends on the city because like in the southern part of California, like if they catch you with a shopping cart, it's up to the cop, if they give you a $250 ticket. Or here I see people with shopping carts and it's okay.
Yes, and this is all very specific to Berkeley.
It depends, like you said, it depends on the cost.
Absolutely.
I mean, you go to Santa Cruz and they don't allow anything, you know,
Yeah.
it's, the sidewalks have to be kept clear, you can't sit in one place for more than an hour, they come and ask you to leave, and you gotta leave.
I think it has a lot to do with how the people that are in the city perceive the homeless.
Yes, you're right.
And
Absolutely.
that's what makes the difference.
And Berkeley's kind of a mixed
Well,
bag on that.
they're, how should I say it? I can't figure out the word.
Santa Cruz is a tourist town, so they try to keep everything.
Well,
nice.
Berkeley's a tourist town too. You
Well,
got
to a certain
nothing but a bunch of $40,000 kids out here spending money every year.
That's true. It's
I
way
mean,
more
you
than
go
40
to
grand, I'll
Anaheim
tell
and
you
you have
what.
the same problems. You know, and Anaheim has a lot of homeless. And, you know, they're passing ordinance against people sleeping on the street, walking. You know.
Well, and that brings me to kind of the last thing I
Well,
wanted to
before
make you aware
stop
of.
with the packaging,
Uh-huh.
just one other thought is, well, what about, I have two thoughts here. So that basket that's out front, then you go and you know, oh gosh, 2 hours, I gotta go move it to the other corner. That kind of mentality. I mean, why wouldn't the police just say, we know this basket, you know, it was over there a few feet, and now this basket has moved over there, kind of like the, when you move your car.
I know. When
you're
you
in
move
that
your
for
car,
2
they can't
hours.
come and ticket you again, though. As long as you move it.
You won't
But
have
I
a
don't think the
boot
same
up.
will apply to the baskets. I
Okay,
think the
well, that's
police
what I'm trying to
will.
think, is like, what kind of thought process, it's like, I've
Depends
got
on the
baskets out there,
officer.
do I go move it every 2 hours so that I can come walk back into
It's
the
gonna depend on
library?
the officer.
This is all dependent, I'm trying to think if somebody in this meeting, upcoming city council meeting, if they're gonna address something like that, like just, you know, if you're at the library and you move it 4 feet, you're still at the library.
Yeah.
My other second question was, okay, this same basket, I might be able to bring that basket inside the library, but now the library has a restriction on what your thing is that you can bring into that library.
Right.
Because I've gone to the Claremont library, and they just right off the top, I mean, you know, they're not waiting for you, but, you know, it's a smaller library, just right off the top, they'll say, you know, you can't bring that in.
Right.
So I'm wondering how that's going to work here, too.
Well, it's gonna be interesting. We'll really have to see how it all pans out once they pass
Okay,
it.
now the third comment, just in thinking on this, was that for some reason, every time they talk about this, where you leave your basket or your personal belongings, they're always talking about a cube, 3 cubed. You know, that little 3 feet by 3 feet by 3 feet little thing that you're allowed to take about with you. So I'm just wondering how all that's going to come into play for this, you know, the city council. If they're going to keep just kind of ignoring the little specific details or what's
If they're
happening.
allowed to, yeah, I mean, maybe, I mean, I would be glad to see you at the city council meeting to bring up some of this stuff, because I think that they're important.
Another thing that kind of sucks is we're coming up on winter.
Mhm.
Everybody wants to stay warm. I want to stay warm. During the summertime, they never mess with me. During the
Right.
winter
It's only
time,
when
when
you're-
it's wet and everything else like that, then that's when the cops roll up and kick me out my spot. Dude, it's raining.
Yeah,
I mean, come on.
yeah, and that's, you know, applying different rules in winter and summer, that's not something
I mean,
that,
during the summer, I
that's,
can understand that.
yeah,
You know,
I mean, it's
during the
very
winter, right?
police dependent, it really depends on the officer. And you
Well,
wanted to make a
I-
comment, sir?
Me?
You had your
Oh,
hand up.
yeah, since every law is, it will be contestable, though. Like, if you get, the ordinance be challenged in court, since we have this system where we can, every law can be
Certainly,
reviewed by,
absolutely.
and are there any advocacy groups, pro-homeless groups that could challenge the law in court?
Oh, yeah, I mean, the Homeless Action Center and the East Bay Community Law Center, and I know Lawyers Committee for Human Rights, I'm not sure who else. I mean, we've got a class action suit going against Caltrans right now for taking people's stuff and not saving it for them.
Are you talking about
Because
down-
it's my
down by the bridge?
sentiment, and my personal sentiment that I've been moving from southern to northern part of California. That is happening everywhere, and it's just like the rich people are, and I'm not talking about the rich people from California. The rich people from anywhere are just pouring into California. Developers are just developing for the wealthy, and they are pushing people on the streets.
That's right.
And so there is no legislation in place to house these people who eventually get into, or sadly, some people get into drugs and alcohol because they don't have anything to cope with.
You know what, you might want to go to this event being put on by the Western Regional Advocacy Project. It's on the 23rd down in Oakland, at the amphitheater on the plaza. And the United Nations is sending a special rapporteur on homelessness issues, and she's going to speak there. Because, the ninth, well, so one of the things it's legal to do is sleep on the street. And there's a Ninth Circuit case called Martin versus City of Boise that basically says It violates the Eighth Amendment, which is the amendment that says that prohibits cruel and unusual punishment, to force somebody to move when they're sleeping on the street if there is no shelter bed available.
That's recent, isn't it?
It's a pretty recent decision. I mean, the problem with it is it's on appeal, so if the Supreme Court gets a hold of it, it may go away.
But I mean,
at this
it's like a
point,
kind
it
of
is illegal for the cops to roust you out of a sleeping spot if there are no shelter beds available.
Like to me, what it seems like is kind of torturing people because like you don't have a sleep, and sometimes you go for days we don't have any sleep, and people are asking you to be awake. You know, sometimes physically, sometimes they put the light on you or make sounds. You know, just
Yes.
sleep deprivation. No human can stand that. It's
No,
kind of
it is a form of
torturing.
torture, and that's why the United Nations is interested, and kind of they're investigating and talking about this.
The reason people don't realize it is because they haven't. Nobody has present that in the context of
So you may find this interesting. It's Tuesday.
This Tuesday.
Yeah, from 11 to 12 in the morning at Frank-Ogawa Plaza in Oakland in the amphitheater. And there's going to be, the Coalition on Homelessness, the East Oakland Collective, the Village, First They Came for the Homeless. All these organizations have gotten together to sponsor the UN rapporteur to come here and talk about these issues. And she has already traveled California and talked to homeless people from south to north, and I think she's working on a report for the United Nations about the issue, and particularly about the issue of police messing with people who are trying to sleep when there is no other place for them to sleep.
What time is it?
Where you're supposed to go.
Right.
That also makes the point, see, I read an article in the paper that,
I have copies of the article too if you want.
that, a lot of places, they want to proselytize to you in order to allow you to sleep there. Proselytize, for those of you who don't know, is preach to you, make you accept the Christianity, or whatever. And a lot of people, they don't share those views. And so there might be shelter bed available, but it's in a religious situation where you have to accept their views in order to stay there. And that law takes into account that just because there's a bed available there and you're sleeping on the street doesn't mean you're wrong to be sleeping on the street if you don't share those religious views.
Yeah, and I don't think the court addresses that specifically, but I do think it's a good point, because it's unconstitutional to force religion on somebody who isn't interested.
Well, basically, if you want to go eat a meal at certain churches, you have to sit there and go
they get
through
away
the
with it because they're
sermon
giving
before
it to
you
you
get
for
to
free.
eat.
I wanna, yeah. I used to be a part of the Jehovah's Witnesses group, and it was very hard for me to pray or to be somewhere where most people are ex-religion. It was very hard. I became atheist in 2014, which makes my life so much easier. But as a person who is from other beliefs, like Jehovah's Witnesses have really strong beliefs about what is to pray to any other thing that is not Jehovah. So I can understand, when somebody doesn't feel comfortable in a group, communing with a group of people that is not from.
I have a question. Two. Okay, one is just a comment, and then one's a question. The comment is, you could talk about all these things as much as you want, but if you can't get the homeless people to get together to talk about it, and I don't mean going to some place. I mean, you can't even get them to think about it or vote about it. I feel like, we get these free Obama phones. I feel like, yes, the United States will pay for your phone, but you have to vote. We don't care what you vote or if you then vote for yourself. Vote for yourself to get your phone turned on, because if you don't, you're not going to turn it on.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to vote, that's your voice. It's not, we don't need the UN to come down here and
No, I agree.
discuss what it's like in India to just fall out on the street and hope to
Yeah.
God Mother Teresa comes along.
I think
No,
it's
I
just that
hope
a lot of
somebody
people have
with
so
some
many other
coffee-
things going on.
I help somebody with some coffee periodically, almost never, and somebody's talking to me like, oh, I help people on the street. Really? You know, I'm Mother Teresa all of a sudden, you know what I'm saying? But now my other one, here's the real question. The real question is, you're saying there's a lot of room here for police interpretation about, you know, where you fall out to sleep,
Always.
or what that item is that you're dragging around with you, if it's acceptable next to you where you're sleeping, or you got to fall out on top of your backpack or whatever, you know, so you're trying to keep this cube, that's interpretation for the police. And then I read in an article in that New California little 4-page deal, you know, about this upcoming meeting, what they want to do. They said, well, there's a lot of play there for, and potentially difficulties arising with the police. Well, who's setting up the police to, you know, mess with us? Because personally, I haven't had the police do anything to me, although I've heard about it. I mean, you know, I'm like in a spot where, you know, this reporter gets shot, and, you know, people are like, well, maybe he didn't, you know, or he's not dead yet, etc. But it's like, for me, I never had the police do anything to me, but, you know, I hear about it in the news, so I know that so-and-so got killed, and, you know, that there was shootings at schools, etc. Police haven't done anything to me, but, you know, like last night, the guy tried to take my phone. The police all out of the air came and arrested the guy. I didn't even have to call the police.
Wow.
You know,
okay.
yeah, he was choking me, you know, and everything. And,
Was that this
but like,
morning?
well, here's my thing is like, this is very gray area about the police. So if in between this news article and the police, it's like, oh, is the city council, you know, using the police to get to me? Do you know what I'm saying? To say when they feel like it, when somebody in the city council says, I keep seeing that girl Louisa, you know, she's driving around that little 4-wheel cart, and she fell out in front of my business, and I just don't think I like that. So,
Yeah.
you know, you send the police over, and then we get, and that's like, the police, somebody has interpretation for, like, officer might say, no, I'm sorry, Louisa, but, you know, this just can't happen, you know, or whatever. So who wrote this article about, you know, who's giving you authority to the police? Because on the natural, I never had the police do anything to me. Do you know what I'm saying? So it's like, who's
That's a good
setting up
point.
who for what? Why don't
But
they be
before
specific?
we go too far, because I want to give Terry
Oh,
a
I'm
chance to
done.
talk, and I, just one more comment, and then I'm going to turn it over to Terry to.
Can I say one thing?
Yeah.
As far as the churches, I think if they have government funding, they cannot deny, they can't require you to. But if they're not, that they can.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes. That I believe that's correct.
I have one more before he gets on. About this drinking. I drink. 3 years ago,
You're allowed to drink in public. You just can't have an open container.
there was no open container, it was all gone.
Okay.
I was sleeping in the middle of the night, about 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. Cop rolls up, tells me to stand up, and of course, I'm still drunk. And he arrested me for drunk in public. I said, why don't you just leave me to sleep? That's what I was doing. I'm not out there harming anybody, running up and down Shattuck or something like that. I'm sleeping. Leave me alone.
It's actually not illegal to be drunk in public. It's illegal to have an open container, or if you're, you know, messing with other people.
Well,
It's
yeah,
not
I can
illegal to
understand
technically be
that,
drunk.
but I was sleeping.
Well, let me let Terry
Okay, go ahead.
talk a little bit here.
Take care of it, sir.
I'll take care of it. So the only reason I'm here is because beyond know your rights, it's kind of know your rights to services. So I know services. I've been working for Homeless Action Center for a period and for the city of Berkeley and other nonprofits. So I know services. So, I mean, we've only got like 10 minutes left. So there's no way we're going to, I can't speak to all the many issues that you all have that are all valid. I mean, what I can say is that, for instance, Mask here at 1931 Center just opened some lockers on Monday. I don't know if they've all gone, but so
There's like 40 of them.
There's 40 of them left. So if someone needs to store your stuff, if you have too many possessions that you might get harassed by cops, go to Mask 1931 Center on Monday and see if you can get a locker.
Tomorrow.
The other,
I think that you do that through BOSS, because I went to the All Access Shelter, the Veterans Building today.
Yeah.
And I spoke to David, and he said if I come back on Monday, then he can give me a locker.
exactly, so Boss shares that space at 1931 Center with Bess also. So what I was going to say is that, so there are options, and the other piece is just that Berkeley recently has opened, or over the last year, has opened a shelter where they allow dogs, they allow people to stay longer periods. Basically, they can stay until they can get permanent housing or for extended periods. And they allow couples and animals, so they are trying to accommodate in this entirely imperfect system. They are trying to accommodate people. There's Bob here with the hat here at the front, runs a shelter where it's drop-in. You don't have to go through the coordinated entry system, where you can just drop in, assuming that there's space, and get a bed. So, and that's a new addition to the homeless shelters that have been in Berkeley for decades.
Yeah,
So-
actually, to clarify that, you do need to get a referral at this point.
Oh, you do need-
Initially, we took people in. Now that we're full, any displacements have to be done through the
CES.
through the, yeah,
Now, is that
coordinated.
the 211 phone number?
Exactly, yeah,
No, the 866 number.
866,
Yeah, this is a city-funded shelter,
okay.
so we're not opening it up.
So this is
to
a new-
county. Yeah.
This is a new piece. So there's a 866-960-2132. So it's basically, you can find out through the different homeless agents, service agencies. So I just want to say that piece too is that this is, without defending the system at all, within the city of Berkeley, there are many social service providers. So if you're over 55, for instance, you can go to the senior centers and get information, specific information about all the various programs. Suitcase Clinic has programs for young people. There's a Yay shelter for young people. So even if you don't want to stay in a shelter, there are places where you can go to get information if you want to try to get housing or benefits, or if you want to learn your rights more, you can always just drop into Homeless Action Center. Because we're not going to solve everyone's issues here, but you can always drop in and talk to a lawyer. All the time we're open. Basically, there's a lawyer at the front desk there.
Is that the 1931 Center?
1931 Center is where you go to get the lockers, to apply for a locker.
How long could you stay at the locker?
You know, I don't know what the time limit is on the locker.
I do.
Oh, do you? Okay.
So
Well,
how long?
so is it up to a year? I don't know how long in total, but I know that they're open for a certain amount of the day, like 10 to 2. But then you can leave stuff there overnight. So
Yeah,
you
you only
can
access
keep
your
it
stuff.
there for extended, you can keep your stuff in the locker for
Has it
extended
been your own
period of
locker?
time.
No.
I don't know.
No, they have their own lock there.
Well, I'm curious about what's the dimensions on this.
3 foot by 3 foot by 3 foot.
Yeah, and it just opened on
Your old cube.
It just opened on Monday, so there are going to be spaces. So just the fact that you're here, you know, if you know someone who might be able to use it, you might want to send them down there or go yourself.
What kind of stuff for me is the time constraint.
Yeah, only being able to access for a certain number of hours a day.
You know, unless I want to hop over the wall.
Right, you gotta
You're there
kind
every
of
day
put
at
your
that time,
long-term
what are you
storage
talking
stuff.
I know, but I can leave my stuff there, but I can't get back.
This is such an amazing conversation, and I really appreciate how well you all have dug in together on things that are both really, really big and really, really small. It makes my librarian heart really happy to see the library being a place where that can happen. And I have to warn you that we have another speaker who is preparing to speak in about 7 minutes. So I think we have time for like 2 more minutes worth of conversation, and then you'll be downstairs on the 3rd floor. So some of that can continue downstairs also.
In a community room?
In
I
the
just
community
wanna-
room, yep, and I think there's still food down there, so.
So something real quick, we can email the mayor of the council members too, right?
Yeah.
That way, if you cannot make it to the city council meeting, or you get nervous when speaking, is one of the most, you get afraid to.
Yes.
But like, we
So
can
camera.
email the city council and say, hey, I live here, I'm homeless, blah, blah, blah.
Absolutely.
Yep.
I just want to make a quick statement, I came in a little bit late. I work with Ross and considered homeless, and there is an election coming up. I have the registration forms, and the one register is Monday, and I'm going to have folks register if they would like to register. You don't need an address, and you don't need to have, picture ID or anything like that.
Where would you go to vote?
We've been figuring out, based on the intersection that you put down as an address, because the intersection is considered a legal address, where the polling place would be. So for example, if Kittredge and Harold, that little street over here, that would be, that's Hall, is the polling place. Is the library a polling place as well?
I know the branch libraries are, I'm not sure if Central
Okay,
is or not.
because I think that's
Not sure.
covered most of downtown in terms of the place where you would go to vote.
And about that address, I thought I read something that says you can do that. You can do an intersection to a street, but somewhere along the line, you gotta have an address as a reference point.
No, I mean, you can put down an address if you had one previously and you were previously registered, but it's not required. You can put down a mailing address if you want to get a
Yes.
paper ballot.
Yes.
To a place where you pick up mail, you can then get the paper ballot by mail, and then if you have that in hand, you can drop that off at any polling place. It doesn't have to be like a specific one. But I have details on
How
that.
to do that too. And where did you say we'd be able to ask you these questions?
I'm hanging out here. I do want to go to the next seminar that's coming in here in a couple minutes, but I'm here.
After all these seminars, where are you gonna be at to?
I can hang out in the library for a while. and-
Because I want to ask you, I want to tell you, because I am registered to vote, but I need more details about
Okay, I'll see
what
how
we
I
were
can
just
help.
talking about.
Well, I have to say, I think that brings us like pretty much full circle between city council and services and making your voice heard and local and national. And thank you for that lovely sort of like sum upable moment. Do you have final words you want to say? Do you want to just continue the conversation downstairs?
Yeah, we'll be downstairs. You're welcome to come in to.
You'll be able to
Homeless
go.
Action Center.
And we have applications for housing. There are 2 senior buildings we have apps for. They're somewhat affordable. One's definitely affordable, the other's not. The other's less as affordable. And then we also have, and then we have one place that if you get SSI, the rent is $497. So it doesn't hurt to get on a list if you want.
Yeah, so we have those applications downstairs. We can give you cards and addresses to come if you want to come visit one of the lawyers in our office too. We don't charge, obviously.
Okay, I need all that.
Okay.
Okay, so thank you very much,
Thank you,
Rachel and Terry, for being with us today.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes,
Oh, what time is that thing on, at Frank the Golf Hall?
I think 11 and 12, right? Yeah.
Oh, yes, we ran out, but there might be some more downstairs. So Harold went down and got some more, and then we ran out of those too. So
Oh, boy.
there might be still some on your table, I doubt
Yeah.
because your entire staff.
We may have some downstairs.
If not,
Yeah, let me get you a copy.
they're on their way back.
But it's
Yes, they're going back down.
866-9602.
Yeah. Yes, Julie's. She's talking about the construction.
Yeah, and he would be great for you to talk to.
Right, it's not,
Which way? Yes.
Is that, really whatever you want. We can put a flash drive right there. We are already on the internet, or we can cable it in to the side. They all do the same. Yeah. I have some internet to your thing.
So the flash So ridiculous, so resentful.
I was going to say, this must just be awful for you because you're usually so energetic about it. Yes.
They don't even begin to